At 05:47 hours local time, the eastern span of the Kerch Road Bridge tore open and dropped toward the water. A single deck section sheared off its bearings and fell 40 feet into the strait, trailing white concrete dust. The drone that did it had crossed roughly 180 miles of open water and defended airspace to reach that one length of road. But the bridge was never the point. 200 meters to the south, on the parallel rail span, a Russian supply train was still rolling. 7 fuel tankers, sealed ammunition wagons, and a Russian anti-drone jamming complex being rushed to Crimea to stop exactly this kind of raid. Within minutes, 600 meters of that train would be burning over open water, throwing a smoke column an estimated 800 feet into the dawn, visible for miles. The Kerch Bridge is the only fixed link between the Russian mainland and occupied Crimea. Every ton of fuel, every artillery shell, every replacement vehicle bound for the southern front either crosses this structure or takes the long, exposed route by sea. That is why it is one of the most heavily defended pieces of infrastructure on Earth. Layered air defense, electronic warfare, point defense guns, all built around a single crossing. And that is why what was riding the rails that morning mattered so much. The train carried the front's next resupply. It also carried the one system meant to keep Ukrainian drones out of Crimean skies, traveling, for now, on the very bridge those drones had come to break. Here is the part the Russian defenders did not understand until it was over. The train had committed. Once a locomotive and its cargo roll onto a bridge deck, there is no maneuver left, no dispersing into a tree line, no scattering across a field. Steel girders on one side, open water on the other, and a crew doing 30 kilometers an hour who could see only the bridge lights and the black water ahead. That is the moment Ukraine had been waiting for. Not the train leaving the yard, not the train approaching the coast, but the train fully out over the strait with nowhere to go. In the bunkers, the shift read a clean picture, a handful of slow contacts, one bearing, one speed bracket, nothing behind them. An orderly little attack heading for the bridge, exactly the kind their systems were built to swat down. They settled in to knock them out of the sky, and one by one, they began to. On their screens, they were winning. They were watching the wrong sky. A second wave, heavier and quieter, was already inbound below the radar horizon, and behind it, a third. The jamming complex built to stop all of it would burn on the rails before it ever unfolded its antenna. The first thing that saw them was a NEBO-M early warning radar, a truck-mounted array that sweeps across VHF, L-band, and S-band at once, specifically so it can catch the low, slow, low-signature targets that ordinary fire control radars miss. It picked up 7 contacts at roughly 100 miles out and pushed the alert across the defense network. 7 returns, 1 direction, 1 speed bracket. On paper, a solved problem. The picture was clean, coherent, and completely wrong. What the NEBO-M could see was the FP1 wave. What it could not yet see were the 4 AN-196 Lyutyy heavy drones climbing 12 minutes behind, still under the radar horizon at that range, or the 6 UJ-26 Beaver drones trailing further back, hugging the water. The radar reported the truth. The truth was only 1/3 of what was coming. The S-400 Triumf engaged first, because it always does. The outer ring, able to track hundreds of targets and strike dozens at once. Its interceptor caught the lead FP1 at 39 miles. The drone broke apart over open water. A second interceptor caught the next one seconds later. And here the battery commander faced the arithmetic that would define the whole night. He could have emptied the magazine and killed all 7. But every $1 million interceptor spent on a cheap one-way drone was one he would not have when something heavier arrived. No commander fires his entire magazine at the first thing on the screen, so he held and kept scanning, and let the cheap drones keep demanding radar time he could not fully afford to give. Behind the S-400 sat the Buk M3, the medium-range layer, and inside the Buk sat the Flaw that broke the defense. Every time a genuinely new type of target appeared, a different radar cross-section, a different speed and altitude profile, The fire control software had to reclassify it before it could assign an engagement priority. Against a single family of drones, that reclassification was invisible. A fraction of a second, nobody noticed. But 3 families were inbound in sequence, and each new family forced the count to start over. Each restart cost somewhere between 8 and 12 seconds. Seconds that stacked. Think of a supermarket scanner that has to relearn the barcode format every time a different kind of product reaches the belt. For a line of identical items, it never stumbles. But send it groceries, then hardware, then something it has never scanned, one after another, and it pauses to recognize each new category. And while it pauses, the line behind it grows. The buck was that scanner. Ukraine had deliberately loaded the belt with 3 incompatible products. The math was merciless. From the instant a new contact appeared, the crew needed those seconds to detect it, classify it, slew the launcher, and fire. In 8 to 12 seconds, a drone closing at attack speed covers well over a mile. By the time the buck's processor finished relearning the second wave, that wave was already inside the range where relearning no longer mattered. Then, 42 miles out, something heavier dropped below the radar horizon and started down toward the deck. It had not come to be seen. The 4 AN-196 Lyutyy drones came in where the FP-1s had drawn every eye. Where the small drones had been the picture, the Lyutyy were the blow. Each is a long-range, one-way strike platform built for hardened infrastructure deep behind the line, carrying enough high explosive to crack a reinforced span. They descended toward the road deck while the S-400 and Buk were still spending attention on the drones ahead of them. But between the waves stood the R-330Zh Zhitel, a mobile electronic warfare complex that does not shoot anything down. It kills the link instead, reaching into a drone's satellite navigation channel and drowning it until the aircraft loses its position fix. Earlier that night, Zhitel had already claimed one FP-1 that way, cutting its GPS until the flight controller defaulted to inertial guidance, drifted, and dropped into the water 3 kilometers short. On paper, a jammer like this should have been the answer to a drone raid. In practice, it had a ceiling nobody in the network wanted to admit. A jammer can only run one profile at a time. FP-1, Lyutyy, and Beaver each used a different navigation architecture. Different frequencies, different link logic, different failure behavior. Defeating one told Zhitel nothing about the next. It was a locksmith carrying exactly one key, thrown 3 different locks at once, and told to open all of them before the hour was up. 2 disruptions across the entire raid was the ceiling, not the floor. 17 drones, and the electronic warfare layer could reach 2 of them. So the Lyutyy kept coming. The S-400, its magazine already lighter, put 1 interceptor into the lead drone and broke it apart at 23 miles. The second ran into the seam between Buk and point defense coverage. The Buk locked on, began refining the track, then flinched when its fire control computer flagged a 3rd target category appearing at the edge of detection. The Beaver wave. That 12-second reclassification pushed the engagement past the window where the point defense gun could help, and between them the 2 systems killed the second Lyutyy but burned 21 seconds of attention doing it. 2 Lyutyy remained, both inside 15 kilometers, both diving for the road deck. The first struck near the eastern approach. The warhead detonated against the deck surface. Steel girders buckled, expansion joints sheared, and the span shifted laterally off its bearing pads. The second hit the adjacent span 4 seconds later. The deck cracked along its primary stress line, tilted, and 1 full section dropped into the strait. And here the whole night pivoted. The road bridge was finished, 1 span in the water, 1 wrecked beyond use. But the road bridge had never been the objective. 200 meters south, the rail span still stood, intact, load-bearing, and the supply train was still on it. The fuel, the ammunition, and the anti-drone jammer, all now riding the only crossing left standing. The defenders had spent their outer layers protecting a structure. The target was the cargo. Then 6 Beaver drones came in low off the water and did the one thing the defense could not answer. They split. 3 pairs, each peeling toward a different length of the train. For the first time all night, there was no single threat to face. There were 3 and the defense had to be in 3 places at once. Now the defense had to hold 500 meters of rail with weapons built to guard a point. A Pantsir S-1 and a Tor M2 covered the corridor, short-range systems, missiles and autocannon, designed to throw a protective bubble over a fixed site. But a bubble is a radius, not a line, and the train stretched across more than 500 meters of track. Each system could hold the piece of sky it could reach. The rest was open. Tor M2 caught the first Beaver at 4 miles, its missile closing the gap in 3 seconds flat. The drone fragmented above the water. A second Beaver crossed the same envelope moments later, and Tor took that one too. Zhitel found a third, locked its navigation signal, overwhelmed it, watched it drift into the water beside a bridge piling without touching the train. The second and final disruption the jammer would manage all night, 2 of 17. The ceiling, holding exactly where it always held. 3 Beavers left. Each one carried a different target, and they were inside 2 kilometers now, descending through the bridge's steel superstructure. At terminal speed, the distance between this second and impact was under 40 seconds. The train was still braking. The tankers were still full. The ammunition was still armed. The jammer's antenna was still folded flat for transport. The first Beaver struck the lead fuel tanker. The warhead punched through the cylindrical wall and detonated inside the liquid mass, and the tanker did not explode. It opened. Diesel erupted through the breach, caught fire on the detonation's heat, and poured burning across the flatbed. The next tanker's shell began soaking up the radiated heat. 90 seconds later, it was burning too. Then a third. The fire crawled forward along the coupling chain, tanker to tanker, until 7 of them were alight, stopped only because the forward cars carried thicker insulation, not because the fuel ran out. The second Beaver hit a sealed ammunition wagon mid-train. The warhead breached the steel and set fire to the wooden packing crates inside. Propellant charges caught first, a sharp, accelerating burn that drove the temperature past the point where brass casings begin to fail. The first cook-off came 40 seconds after impact, a low, concussive thump. Then another. The wagon's roof panel blew outward, and fragments raked the neighboring car until it too began to burn from the outside in. The third Beaver found the rear, where the anti-drone jammer rode secured for transport. The warhead struck the flat car carrying the command vehicle, and its fuel supply went first, then the generator's diesel tank, then the communication terminals, and the folded antenna mast. On the car beside it, 3 Orlan 10 reconnaissance drones sat in molded transit crates, airframes, batteries, and optics, built from composites and polymers that burn fast and burn toxic. The jammer detachment, sent to keep Ukrainian drones out of Crimea, was disintegrating on the bridge it was crossing to get there. Then the train's brakes bit and the locomotive stopped. Stopping made everything worse. Now the burning tankers, the cooking ammunition, and the smoldering command wreckage all sat motionless over open water, the rails beneath them soaking heat. Recovery crews could not approach while shells were still detonating. Fire response could not reach the middle while both ends burned. The one crossing that survived the structural attack was now buried under 600 meters of fire no one could get near. Count it the way the defenders did, and it looks like a victory. 17 drones came at the bridge. Russia stopped 10 of them. The S-400 took its share at the outer edge, the Buk took the middle distance, Zhitel cut 2 out of the sky without firing a shot, and the Pantsir and Tor cleaned up what reached the inner ring. 10 intercepts against 17 targets, a 59% kill rate, and the first kill logged 63 kilometers out. On paper, that is a good night's work for an air defense network. Then look at the 7 that got through, because every one of them had a job and every one connected. 2 FP-1s shaped the picture and drained the magazines. 2 AN-196 Lyutyy broke the road bridge, 1 span in the strait, 1 wrecked past use. And 3 Beavers burned the train. 7 fuel tankers alight, ammunition wagons cooking off, and the anti-drone jammer meant to shield Crimea reduced to slag on the rails. The road span settled into the water. The rail bridge still stood, but the rail beneath it lay buried under 600 meters of fire, and a crossing you cannot use is a crossing that has failed. It did not fail because Russia had no defense. It had 6 layers and they worked. It failed because 17 drones arrived in 3 families across 3 waves, each a different shape, a different speed, a different task. The defense had to reclassify 3 times. It had to choose between the bridge and the train. It had to hold 500 meters of open rail with systems built to guard a single point. Every choice its operators made was rational. Every rational choice left something uncovered, and Ukraine had designed the raid so that the gaps would line up exactly where the 7 needed them to be. That is the shift worth understanding. Layered air defense was built to defeat a spear, one hard, fast threat you meet with the right layer at the right range. It was never built to defeat a net. 3 drone families arriving in sequence do not overpower the layers. They overload the decisions between them. The system does not break. The people running it simply run out of seconds. Somewhere along another line tonight, another train is already loading for the front. Its manifest probably lists no jammer. The last one is still smoking over the Kerch Strait. After a night like this, it would not matter if it did. So here is the question worth leaving you with. When the attacker can send 3 kinds of threat instead of 1, is layered defense still an advantage, or has it become a set of seams waiting to be timed? Tell me where you land in the comments. If breakdowns like this are what you come here for, subscribe and turn on the bell, and I will have the next one ready for you.